An honest, fearless journalist murdered in cold blood. They may have silenced Gauri Lankesh, but her work and legacy live on. And India has vowed to take this crusaders' fight ahead.
Here at the Mumbai Press Club, and as you can see right behind me, there are a number of journalists and other activists present here to show their solidarity.
Recent past, we've seen a lot of killings that take place.
By killing someone,
Yes, sir.
you cannot kill the ideology or thought.
Journalists and writers and activists, those who talk about secular India, are being killed.
Anger poured onto the streets of India as citizens fumed and demanded answers.
First thing first is probe it impartially.
First they killed Kalburgi, who was the finest intellectual of this country, and the second is this Gauri.
But for our netas, the death of a fearless harbinger of truth is just another opportunity to score political mileage.
Anybody who speaks against the ideology of the BJP, against the ideology of the RSS, is pressured, beaten.
2-2.5 साल से कर्नाटक में ऐसे हत्याएं लगातार हो रहे हैं.
The Karnataka government has constituted a special investigation team, but the family of the slain journalist isn't convinced.
I'm very hopeful, but at the same time, I request them to hand it over to the CBI. As you know, in the past, especially the Kalburgi case, they didn't make any roads into this that investigation or in trying to catch the culprits.
A crusader of truth silenced for being the voice of dissent, but her death leaves behind several glaring questions. Why wasn't security provided to Gauri Lankesh despite repeated threats? And was she silenced because she was on the verge of exposing a massive scam? Mirror Now report.
Well, the Karnataka government has now formed an SIT of 19 police officers to investigate the case of Gauri Lankesh's murder. It's interesting that these police officers are all state police officers, and the call right now from the family of Gauri Lankesh is for a CBI investigation that cannot be interfered with by the Karnataka government. Why hasn't the government called for a CBI investigation, and why is an SIT being formed of the state government? Let's also remember that this is not the first case of a journalist being murdered in our country. 22 journalists have been murdered since 1992 in India. There are lots of problems with what's going on right now. Problem number one, the investigation is of paramount importance. Problem number two, there has to be a question asked about law and order in a city like Bangalore, where someone as high profile as Gauri Lankesh, where every senior politician is turning around and saying, this is a personal loss, I knew her personally, I knew the amazing work she was doing and the people she was taking on. They could not keep her safe. Question number three, if the Karnataka government was absolutely sure that Gauri Lankesh needed to be kept safe, they could have done so by investigating the previous cases of murders that happened in the same manner, which were not done properly. Question number four, there is a lot of allegations and conspiracy theories being flung about right now about who is responsible for this murder, when we should actually be focusing on who is conducting the investigation. And have they been empowered, and what sort of interference those police officers will face. Finally, as a country and as a society, we need to question the hate that is spewing on social media about this journalist. You may or may not have agreed with what she said and what she stood for, but you have no right whatsoever, whichever dark, dingy basement you are sitting in and hiding behind your computer, you have no right to say that she deserved to die, because you have no right to that opinion. Shame on you. And we need to denounce these people publicly for making these statements today. They are not part of any group. They don't represent any ideology. They are just hate mongers who sit in the dark and hide behind their computers and say hateful things that rip our society apart. I don't care who they support and who they follow. They're just hateful, anti-social, anti-national elements. Anyone who said that this woman deserved to die, you do not deserve to be part of our democracy today. Our questions remain. Why wasn't she kept safe? Why are all these conspiracy theories being flung about, and why are we not focusing on the investigation? Our phone lines are open, so is involve.in. But joining me on the show this evening, Brijesh Kalapa, spokesperson of the Congress government in Karnataka, Yogesh Verma, spokesperson of the BJP. Karuna Nandi is a very senior lawyer with the Supreme Court. Venkatesh BT is the lawyer who represented Ms. Lankesh in the defamation case that is now being talked about. N.D. Mullah, retired Deputy Commissioner of Police from Bangalore. Jayant Umranikar is the former Director General of Police, Special Operations Maharashtra, and I'm very, very happy and proud to also introduce Nalini Singh, senior journalist, who has agreed to be part of this conversation. I'm going to start with Nalini Singh. Ms. Singh, thank you for joining us. As a fellow journalist and senior member of the fraternity, I want to first offer you my condolences and support for the last 24 hours and what we have been through. But this is a fight right now for a journalist's ability to simply be able to do his or her job without fear of death.
Faye, thank you for inviting me. I must say that I regard this as an honor killing. In our country today, only the powerful have honor. The powerless, and that honor has to be protected. The powerless don't have honor, and when they try to hit, as Gauri Lankesh did, this protective armor of honor, then people like Gauri are eliminated. This is as medieval as it gets, and I would say that they have killed her, they've eliminated her, but will not be able to eliminate or stifle dissent. And this is what the outpouring of so many journalists all over the country is indicating today. This is not the India I was born in. And I must tell you that there used to be, if in the India that I knew, if there was a book that was against you, you wrote a better book. You didn't ban it. But then came Rajiv Gandhi's rule, where the satanic verses was banned. Maybe a few books were banned before that. Now what happened? To silence that, the thought. Now what's happening is that now you have, if you don't like what somebody is doing, you silence them with a pistol. It's the same pistol, I believe, and maybe it will be confirmed later, that shot Kalburgi and Dabolkar. So are we becoming familiar with that? And I think the one way that somebody found out of this environment of fear and having to tread so carefully is Perumal Murugan, who declared himself dead. The person who wrote One Part Woman, he could not live after writing that. So he declared himself dead. It's only the Madras High Court that resurrected him. So is this the India that we will tolerate? Is this the India that we want to leave for our children and grandchildren? In my opinion, it's not the India. So we have to do something. You're talking about investigation. I'm going one step before that. We have to talk about this environment of fear and of always looking over your shoulder on what will happen if you say this. So I think the time has come. Also, Faye, you will allow me, please, just 10 seconds more. Look at the Press Freedom Index that came out in May. We have slipped 3 more notches. Now we are below Nepal and Afghanistan. We are 3 notches above Pakistan. Where are we going?
Where are we going? That's a good question to ask. I have Brijesh Kalapa with me, spokesperson of the Congress in Karnataka. Mr. Kalapa, thank you for joining us. I have a list with me right now that's come out of the Government of Karnataka Police Department less than an hour ago. It lists out the names of 19 state police officers, the highest rank of which is DCP Crime 2 of Bangalore City, who will be part of the SIT, the Special Investigative Team, in this particular case. My question to you is, okay, I understand that he can't hear me. We're going to try and get him back on again. My question remains, how will we get to the bottom of this case if it is the Karnataka government police that is investigating this case, and why hasn't the CBI been called yet? We're going to try and get connected again to Brijesh Kalapa. I'll take that question to Karuna Nandi. Karuna Nandi, the family of the deceased, of the victim, demands the CBI be brought in. Do you agree?
I think it's a tough question, because on the one hand, the CBI has been described by the courts as a caged parrot, and there is a way in which you know, we have had a lot of violence by groups that are affiliated at the larger groups are affiliated to the Sangh Parivar, like the Bajrang Dal, for instance, that have not been declared terrorist organizations. You know, in 2006, 2 activists were killed in Nanded in the process of bomb making, for example. You know, I'm just seeing in 2008 a wave of attacks directed against the New Life Christian churches in Karnataka by the Bajrang Dal, for example, right? So the thing is that, I mean, a question was asked on Twitter, which was that Gauri Lankesh was not afraid of anybody. Who was afraid of Gauri Lankesh? What are the issues that she challenged? She challenged casteism, she challenged communalism in a very, very strong way. Most recently, a lot of her sort of standing for the rights of the people who have been oppressed were on communal issues. So, without preempting any investigation, etc., I think it's a very difficult question. At the moment, it seems that the incentives are much more aligned for the state government to conduct the investigation. There's a lot of pressure on them, and I think there's an incentive for the Congress to show that it doesn't. You know, when there is somebody so high profile that has been killed, and it's true that so many journalists in this country have been killed, and mostly from the vernacular press, right? And accountability hasn't been found. At the moment, it seems to me that the politics are more aligned for Congress state government to find who was responsible. At the same time, I will say that it is a central government responsibility to declare based on evidence rather than based on affiliation, based on activity and based on convictions rather than on religion, who the terrorist organizations are in this country, because these assassinations are not to be tolerated. I think the purpose of this assassination, like any other political assassination, was to bring a chilling effect and to prevent people from reporting. The opposite has happened.
Right, the opposite. You're absolutely right, because people, Karuna has pointed out,
and certainly not you or this channel at all, Faye, had done its job, we would not be in this position.
So, like Karuna has pointed out, people have come out into the streets today in unison with a singular voice saying we will not allow this sort of thing to happen in our country. We will speak for Gauri Lankesh and we will stand with every voice, which is why our phone lines are open, because I want for people who are watching to join with your voices. At this point, let me tell you, and I'm going to speak directly to the viewers right now as a journalist. At this point, there has never been a time in our country in recent past for the citizens of our country to come out clearly and say you stand with the journalists who do what they do on a daily basis. We have never needed it more, I'm telling you, to know that society means for us to continue to do this work. If you suddenly are brought face to face with the fact that you face a threat to your life from the job that you do, you want to know that society stands behind you. You want to know that people stand with you, that people will continue to support what it is you're doing, and what you're doing is in fact for the larger good of society and is in fact against social injustice. So while there's enough talk about the fact that, oh, she was left-leaning and she was anti-national, what she was doing was fundamentally good and from the fundamental need to do good for society. I want to bring in N.D. Mullah, retired Deputy Commissioner of Police from Bangalore. Mr. Mullah, my question to you is this. At 8 p.m., gunshots were fired in a crowded part of Bangalore on someone who was fairly high profile. And even if people don't know the history of Gauri Lankesh. Every politician who has spoken in the last 24 hours has talked about how they knew her well and she was a personal friend, and they're all deeply hurt by this particular incident. Andy Mullah, did the law and order machinery in Bangalore fail to keep Gauri Lankesh safe?
No, I don't agree with you on this. Law and order machinery cannot be termed to be a failure just because of a incident. I know this is a very grave incident. A very right-thinking, rationalist woman. I know her since 1986-87 when she was just an intern and I was an officer in Kaban Park. We used to meet several times. From that day one, her thinking was very rational and she was very secular, and there was no, she has always expressed it. People knew for sure that this is her thinking. Now, straightway the question goes, then who could be her enemies? You know, in all the killings, whether it is Kalburgi in Karnataka, Kalburgi or Gauri Lankesh, we all know for sure that the finger of suspicion towards a particular...
Sure, why are there no arrests that have been made? If everyone knows for sure... One second. Andy Mullah, let's take the side of the law at this point, because it's the only thing we can really truly believe. If you have the evidence right now to on national television, say everyone knows for sure. You said the word everyone, you said knows, and you said for sure. Why don't we have a single arrest that has been made in the Kalburgi case in the last 2 years? And then if you knew for sure... No, shouldn't you have kept her safe is my question.
The arrest word. No. Please try to understand. I was telling only needle of suspicion.
Needle of suspicion means nothing. If you had a needle of suspicion, then there should have been a needle of an investigation, which they obviously not. There was not. Why has there been no investigation whatsoever in the Kalburgi case?
But please police, professional, you are not allowing me to speak only.
No, please go ahead.
Please try to understand. The police doesn't take one angle of investigation. We take several angles and go on. There is a process of elimination which is adopted by every police, whether it is CBI police, COD police, state police or local police. They eliminate all the possibilities and come to one particular and then have the supporting evidence. It doesn't mean that in 24 hours police do not come to a conclusion.
No, but you just said everybody knows for sure.
It is not a Latin American country. There is a
Mullah,
law
as
here.
a retired deputy commissioner of police, you said everybody knows for sure.
Her leanings. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Her leanings. But doesn't mean that whoever is opposed to her could have killed her. There may be several factors to that. Please allow police to do their job. Let them be doing.
So if you are telling me that we should allow police to do their job, why would you come on national television before the investigation has even started and say something like everybody knew for sure? Aren't you misleading the investigating officers as a senior officer, retired officer yourself?
I'm telling you her political thoughts.
We all know her political thoughts.
Please
they were published for all to see.
Don't twist my answer.
My question to you was, did the law and order fail to keep her safe?
I'm trying to tell you, for several years, for last... You only talk. You don't allow me to talk.
Okay.
Please allow me to talk, ma'am.
Umranikar, former DGP Maharashtra.
Her political thoughts... You go on talking. This is the problem. You go on talking. You call us and you don't allow us to talk. 1 second you don't give us to talk. What is the fun of calling us here? I'm trying to tell you, I am a police officer based in Bangalore for several years. And I knew for sure her political leanings, her thought, which was rational and left of the center. Everybody knows it. And people who are opposed to this thought could be one reason, but it is not conclusive. It need not be. Maybe some personal rivalry may be there. Police has to investigate, bring out the evidence and do their job. Whether it is CBI police, local police do it systematically. Police do not jump up to the conclusion.
And
for that matter, you are a national journalist.
Not
you do a lot of
made conclusive headway on.
Allow us to do. You jump up to the conclusion. I am pained because I knew from... Hello.
Fair enough. It's been one day. What about the other investigations? What about the fact that your state government has failed to deal effectively with right-wing Hindutva?
Well, you know, let me just bring in another police officer. Jayant Umranikar is the former DGP Maharashtra. Mr. Umranikar, thank you for joining us and thank you for listening so patiently. Mr. Umranikar, here are my questions. If according to Mr. N.D. Mullah, everybody knew for sure, couldn't we have kept this person safe? Now, I understand that no police can offer permanent security to every citizen, and if she had denied security and said she didn't want it, then they can't force it on her. But what they could have done was a more conclusive investigation into the Kalburgi case that happened 2 years ago in the exact same manner, sending a very clear message to assailants saying we will not stand by this, this is not good enough. Mr. Jayant Umranikar, could law and order have done more?
Let me answer your question in parts. First thing is, inference and evidence are two different things. Inference will give you motive. It may give you motive. But what police have to search for is evidence. It's only the evidence that ultimately will lead you to the murder, will lead you to the criminals. Generally, in all these cases, this is my observation, that people go by inferences. And then there's a lot of discussion that is based on inferences. This incident has happened just about yesterday, and this is a premeditated murder.
Why has evidence not been found in the Kalburgi case?
Yeah, I will answer that also. A premeditated murder is extremely difficult to detect because the criminals are getting more and more sophisticated.
Because let's not talk about inferences. Let's talk about similar assassinations that you have failed to deal with. Let us talk about that.
Yeah, in fact, there have been many cases where police have failed to deal with, and it's not just Indian police. I mean, I have to tell you, I have to remind you of Olof Palme's murder, Swedish Prime Minister. Even that murder could not be detected because it was performed in a very sophisticated way. I am not trying to justify. I am just trying to explain what has happened. In all these cases, unfortunately, I find that there is not enough evidence left by the criminals.
So basically, hang on. Basically, let me understand this at this point. So if someone now, we've discovered on television at prime time, buys a motorcycle and a gun, drives up to somebody's house and shoots them point blank, the police have already decided that there is no way to solve this case, that there will not be enough evidence because crime after crime in this manner has not been solved. And you're telling me that there won't be enough evidence? How is that possible, Mr. Umranikar? Aren't we handing out now a recipe for this sort of murder?
Not at all. Not at all. You see, just see what I am saying. What I am saying is very simple. In these crimes, in the first 2 or 3 days, you find evidence that is based on the immediate clues that are available at the crime spot. If the police do not find those clues, then they have to go for criminal intelligence. If the criminal intelligence does not supply any information, they have to go to forensics. If the forensic does not help them, they ultimately, the police have to make an appeal to the people at large. Please come forth, and if anybody knows any information, please share it with us. Otherwise, these type of crimes are ultimately decided by chance detection. I am just telling you how it happens in practice. I am not trying to confine myself to 1 or 2 murders that have happened. I am giving you in general what is the line of investigation that police undertake. And unfortunately, in case of Dabolkar, in case of Pansare, in case of Kalburgi, there is not enough evidence to really pin down the culprits. Some suspects have been arrested. Police have conducted investigation and found that there is not enough evidence coming forth to justify further investigation in a particular manner.
Okay, so what we're getting here, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here. I'm going to interrupt you. So what we're getting here is that if someone shoots you point blank tomorrow, there is going to be no evidence and the police is not going to be able to solve that case. Because Kalburgi, we've not had any arrests. Pansare, we've not had any arrests. Dabolkar, we've not had any arrests. So now what the police have done is handed out a recipe, saying if somebody is dissenting, if somebody is saying things that you don't like, here is a recipe to make that person go away, because the police are going to turn around and say there's not enough investigation to pursue there's not enough evidence to pursue an investigation. Dalini Singh.
Madam,
yes.
I should say, I want to say something. मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि ये चारों हत्याओं में एक मिनट मैं कुछ बोलना चाहता हूँ इन चारों हत्याओं में एक चीज बहुत कॉमन है कि जैसे ही इनमें से किसी व्यक्ति का हत्या हो गया 5 मिनट के अंदर चारों ओर से आवाज आनी शुरू हो जाती है कि ये राइट विंग ने किया, राइट विंग ने किया, राइट विंग ने किया। इसी की जबकि ये चारों के चारों नक्सली आंदोलनों के साथ जुड़े हुए थे, जो कि सशस्त्र क्रांति में मानता है, और किस प्रकार से दिशा भूल करना, पॉलिटिकली दिशा भूल करना, ऑल ऑफ सडन सारे के सारे लोग टीवी पे आकर के अभी मैडम ने कहा ये बजरंग दल का हाथ है। मैं ये कहता हूं इनके पास क्या सबूत है इस प्रकार से बात करने का, जबकि इन्वेस्टिगेशन पूरी नहीं हुई है। अभी तक पुलिस को सीसीटीवी का जो फुटेज है उसका कोई चेहरा सामने नहीं आया है। आप सीधा बजरंग दल के ऊपर आरोप लगाते हो। मुझे तो लगता है कि इसकी इन्वेस्टिगेशन थरो तरीके से सीबीआई से करानी चाहिए, क्योंकि इन्होंने जो टीम बनाई है वो सब डीसीपी से कम रैंक के अधिकारी हैं।
पे कोई आरोप नहीं लगाया सर, हमने कहा जो कहा है वो
और किस प्रकार से आपने बजरंग दल का नाम लिया है। आपने बजरंग दल का क्या आपने इन्वेस्टिगेशन अधिकारी के साथ बात की है? क्या इन्वेस्टिगेशन अधिकारी ने आपको बताया कि बजरंग दल के कार्यकर्ताओं का काम है ये?
हमने बजरंग दल का नाम
आपने किस तरीके से आपने बजरंग दल का नाम लिया? आपने क्यों नक्सलवादियों का नाम नहीं लिया? जिन लोग जिन ग्रुप के साथ में ये एफिलिएटेड थे और कांग्रेस की सरकारों ने इसकी जांच और उन्होंने बताया जो सशस्त्र क्रांति करते थे, इन लोगों को पता है किस किस्म से हत्या की जाती है, किस किस्म से सटीक हत्या की जाती है। आप सीधा बजरंग दल का नाम लेती है, आपको बोलने का अधिकार दिया है जो नहीं किया गया। बजरंग दल का आप मुझे इस तरह से नहीं रोक सकती हैं। आप मेरी बात भी आप मुझे बोलने का अधिकार है। मैं हर बार वही बात बोल रहा हूँ क्योंकि मेन बात आ नहीं रही है।
कोई नहीं कह रहा कि बजरंग दल के किसी व्यक्ति ने गौरी जी का
नक्सली संगठनों से जुड़े हुए थे।
किसी ने
आप मुझे बोलने दीजिए ना, एक शब्द भी नक्सली आंदोलनों के खिलाफ आपने नहीं कहा है, आपने कम्युनिस्ट आंदोलन के खिलाफ नहीं कहा है, आपने माओवादियों के खिलाफ नहीं कहा है। आपको
अरे आप लोग सुनते क्यों नहीं हो? जर्नलिस्ट मर रहे हैं,
जर्नलिस्ट मर रहे हैं, तो आपको राज्य सरकार को कोसना चाहिए, आपको वहां की सिक्योरिटी को कोसना चाहिए। आपको कोई अधिकार नहीं है बजरंग दल को कोसने का, आपको कोई अधिकार नहीं है किसी राइट विंग को, संघ परिवार को कोसने का।
हम सबसे सवाल करें,
उसका कोई निर्णय नहीं आ जाए।
योगेश वर्मा, आप चिल्लाना बंद कीजिए। हम सबसे
पुलिस के अधिकारी बोल रहे हैं, आपको पुलिस के 2 अधिकारियों ने कहा आप इन्वेस्टिगेशन पूरा होने नहीं दे रही हैं। इन्वेस्टिगेशन तो होने दो, इन्वेस्टिगेशन का जो परिणाम है वो तो आने दो। आप इन्वेस्टिगेशन छोड़ करके आप राइट विंग के पीछे ये बदनाम करने का कितना बड़ा साजिश है। आपने नक्सलवादियों के बारे में क्यों मालूम नहीं किया? क्यों आप नक्सलवादी आंदोलनों के साथ जुड़े हुए थे? चारों लोग उसके विषय में बात नहीं करते। क्या नक्सलवादी सशस्त्र क्रांति नहीं कर रहे हैं? क्या ये हथियार नहीं चला रहे हैं? क्या मिलिट्री के अधिकारियों की किलिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं? आपने उसके बारे में क्यों नहीं कहा? आपने क्यों कहा कि बजरंग दल के लोगों ने किया? आपने किस पोजीशन से किया? कौन से इन्वेस्टिगेशन अधिकारी ने आपको यह बात कही?
आपका हो गया?
क्या कोई हत्या होने के तुरंत बाद में आप 5 मिनट में निर्णय ले लेते हैं?
किसी को जवाब देने देंगे आप?
नहीं, मुझे पता है, इसलिए मुझे बोले आप कितनी देर से मुझे बोलने नहीं दे रही है।
आप किसी
पुलिस के अधिकारी आपको बता रहे हैं, क्या पुलिस के अधिकारियों से भी हम ऊपर हो गए? हमने पुलिस के अधिकारी जो डीजी रैंक के अधिकारी हैं, आईजी रैंक के यानी रिटायर्ड अधिकारी हैं, मैं उम्र आपको जानता हूँ, वरिष्ठ अधिकारी हैं, वो आपसे बात कर रहे हैं, दूसरे अधिकारी आपसे बात कर रहे हैं, आप समझ नहीं रहे इस बात को। मेरा ऐसा मानना है नक्सलवादियों के बारे में जांच होनी चाहिए, कम्युनिस्ट आंदोलनों के साथ जांच होनी चाहिए। इनके भाई ने ही आरोप लगाया कि नक्सलवादी आंदोलन से जुड़ी
योगेश वर्मा,
ये सारे जांच होने चाहिए।
योगेश वर्मा, किसी को बोलने दीजिए।
आप मुझे बोलने दीजिए। सबसे पहले
आपने बोल दिया।
बैठा हूं ना, मैं 1 घंटे से बैठा हूं, मैं सुन रहा हूं। बजरंग दल की बुराई करेगा तो आप उनको बोलने दो, संघ की बुराई कर, यानी ये संघ के खिलाफ कोई कैंपेन है? ये संघ के खिलाफ कोई कैंपेन है तो आप मुझे बताएं, मैं चुपचाप बैठ जाता हूं। पुलिस के अधिकारी भी झूठे हैं, सब झूठे हैं। सिर्फ मैं यहाँ पर आऊं, संघ को कोई अपशब्द कहूं, संघ के साथ सीधा सीधा हत्या का आरोप लगा दूं, बजरंग दल के ऊपर आरोप लगा दूं,
ये भी थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखिए।
ये ठीक नहीं है। आपने बजरंग दल के विषय में किस तथ्य के आधार पे कहा है?
Rajesh Kalapa, one second. I want to focus on the case that we are talking about. These sort of political rants are completely misplaced. Rajesh Kalapa, representing the Congress Party of Karnataka, could the government have kept Gauri Lankesh safe is my first question. My second question to you is, for everyone who's watching right now, ordinary citizens, journalists, rationalists, teachers, whoever might be disagreeing, what confidence do we have that we will remain safe?
First of all, Faye, Gauri could have been safe, provided, because she met the Chief Minister of Karnataka just a week before her death if she had only mentioned to him that there were death threats. But she didn't mention to him, nor did she even tell him that, look, I want some security. She had said that.
I'm going to go over to Nalini Singh right now. We seem to have lost that connection. Nalini Singh, the question is simply this. People dissent all over the country. How do we keep them safe? How do we ensure that dissenters, and I really don't care about the politics. I just want to know, how do we keep people safe? Nalini Singh.
You know, you were beginning to ask Rajesh Kalappa this question, and I thought his answer would be that he's going to work out how to reverse the environment and atmosphere, which is so permissive just now, that if you don't like something, you can just take anything and either pelt stones at them, or you can harm them in some way. This is not this is something which is now going to exacerbate, and people are not going to be themselves. They are going to be existing in this alternate reality, that you dare not say anything which is opposed to somebody in power. Now, I would say to you, Faye, that this is the recipe, besides being the recipe of how to kill a journalist and get away with it forever. This is also a recipe for unmake in India. How can you say to people that you come to India with your fantastically massive FDI, foreign direct investment, into a country that is not going to be able to ensure security of people, say, who are exposed to it on almost a daily basis, which would be journalists, but these are small exposures. These are not very big ones. I don't want to exaggerate the valor of journalists. They just are investigative, and they just don't let go. So they are tenacious. But how will an FDI person, a company that's thinking of massive FDI over the next 5 years, let's say, what will they think? That tenacious people over here are undermined in a way. First, they are silenced, and if they don't become silenced, then bullets are pumped into them. Now, this I can understand for some, and you'll excuse me if I say some, say, ex-USSR countries or other countries in our neighborhood, even Pakistan, I would understand. But here, this is completely, if we are only talking about how Gauri could have been saved physically, I would have to say we might also be prompted now, when the next murder takes place, to say, why didn't we say that the entire environment has to be an environment where everybody can have their say? We have to go back to living with each other as we used to do. This is not going to work. योगेश वर्मा जी, आप ये कह रहे हैं कि ये बजरंग दल के विरोध में है. ये कतई किसी के विरोध में नहीं है. लेकिन अगर आप वातावरण पैदा करेंगे ऐसा, जहां पर मैं सांस भी ना ले सकूं, मैं बोल भी ना सकूं,
आप देश को बदनाम कर रही हैं.
आज
एक जो किलिंग हुई है उसकी निंदा होनी चाहिए, उसकी भर्त्सना होनी चाहिए. आप पूरे देश को, पूरी एफडीआई को इसमें ले रही हैं.
तो मैं एक मिनट,
पूरे देश को, पूरी एफडीआई को इसमें ले रही हैं. इस महाराष्ट्र में इतना बड़ा गणेश उत्सव हुआ, एक भी कोई इंसिडेंस नहीं हुई.
योगेश जी,
इतना नहीं, आप मेरी बात भी सुनिए ना. आप मेरी बात भी सुनिए. आप एफडीआई, आप सारी चीजें, देश बदनाम हो गया. देश बदनाम हो गया.
गणेश
पत्रकार हत्या होना ये निंदनीय है. पत्रकारों को बचाना चाहिए. पत्रकारों की सेफ्टी इस देश के लिए बहुत जरूरी है. लेकिन इसकी आड़ लेकर के हमें कैंपेन चलाना चाहिए. किसी की हत्या के ऊपर कोई कैंपेन चलाना चाहिए. आप एक कैंपेन का हिस्सा हैं. आप इस देश की सरकार को बदनाम करने के लिए इस हत्या का उपयोग कर रहे हैं. ऐसा भगवान के लिए मत कीजिए. मत कीजिए. इस हत्या का
example of what happens if you disagree.
इस हत्या का इन्वेस्टिगेशन होने दीजिए. इन्वेस्टिगेशन से
start speaking all I want to hear. That's what a society I would love to live in. That's what a society which Gauri wanted to live in. That's what the society which she always advocated for, where people can live peacefully, express what they wish, not being silenced by gun, by outshouting or intimidating. The kind of society which we are living in Nalini and Karuna have made it very loud and clear. That's the kind of society we are living in, and this is the kind of society which we have, the kind of society which we aspire. That there is no necessity for anybody to go and secure that, please protect me. That a society where the state is not saying, okay, I look into this particular thing, a person has a threat percent levels of this person is high, therefore I provide protection. That's not the case.
I understand that Brijesh Kalapa can hear us right now. Brijesh Kalapa, if you can hear me, my question... Not yet. Right, Nilesh is on the phone line with us at this point. Nilesh, go ahead. Nilesh, can you hear me? Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, Nilesh, go ahead.
Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Nilesh.
I'm Nilesh calling from Indore, and I'm just listening. I'm listening this debate for last half an hour, and what I'm finding, like, I'm not very fond of this Bajrang Dal and Vishwa Hindu Parishad and all those things, but at the same time, I feel that the left-wing extremism is also on the rise, and we should not jump the gun and let us wait for the police to do the investigation and then come up with this, because just now I heard the Gauri Lankesh brother is saying that she was getting the threat mails from the Naxalites. So why we people are jumping the gun and just wanted to conclude the things right now here in this debate only?
See, my point is, you know, and I want every citizen to ask themselves this question at this point, and I'm going to, you know, and everybody on this panel, everybody at home, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, did we identify ourselves as left-wing or right-wing or whatever else? We were just citizens. We identified ourselves as North Indian or South Indian. Some of us were Bengali, some of us were Maharashtrian, some of us were Kannadiga. I don't recall us ever pointing fingers saying you are leftist or you are right-wing. This is new. This is hatred. Where is it coming from? And whatever Gauri Lankesh may have believed in, nobody has the right to shoot her for it. And nobody has the right to say she deserved to be shot at because of what she believed in. Our Constitution assures us a fundamental right to believe what we want to believe, to say what we want to say, and to live safely. We are all equal in the eyes of our Constitution. Left-wing or right-wing or otherwise makes absolutely no difference, which is why that conversation is completely redundant. What we should be asking about, which is what I started the show with, is the investigation. What we should be asking about is the fact that since 1992, 22 journalists have been killed in our country. 22 journalists. Gauri Lankesh being the last on that list. What we should be asking about is why there have not been arrests in the previous murders that happened in the exact same manner. And when we don't arrest these people for lack of evidence or otherwise, aren't we sending out a message saying if you commit a crime in this manner, the police is going to be completely at a loss. You'll get away with it. Which is why professional killers are now using this like a recipe. We need to only focus on our Constitution and what it assures us, and the IPC and what it says. Nothing else matters. What you believe, what I believe, what Gauri Lankesh believed, none of that matters. It's irrelevant. She was a citizen who had the right to live, the freedom of speech, and the right to live in a free and safe society. Karunanandi, go ahead. You disagree with me. Go ahead.
If you look at the assassinations of M.M. Kalburgi, Govind Pensare, a number of others, and the mode of assassination of Gauri Lankesh, it appears to be similar. This is all prima facie. Clearly, there is very little evidence out there at the moment. That's the first thing. The second thing, it squarely had to do with exactly what they believed. These were rationalists. These were people who did not go by the ideology that is spreading, and there's a sort of impunity of violence that is happening, and impunity of violence, and also the law is being used in incorrect ways to criminally prosecute people who disagree with this sort of this culture, that is sort of seeks to be dominant over democracy, that seeks to be dominant over what the very thoughts of people. And if, for example, today the Supreme Court has asked nodal officers to be appointed in every state to deal with killings in the name of Gauraksha. And because the governments of various states, and very much, and I very much place the significant amount of blame on this on the central governments.
In order to keep the conversation purely about the case at hand, we now are only in conversation with a journalist, a lawyer, and 2 retired police officers. There are no political voices on this debate now. We're just going to stick with the case that we're discussing and what it means. Srinivas Rao is on the phone line from Bangalore. Srinivas Rao, go ahead.
Hi. I would like to ask a few questions to the media also.
Yes.
Because I'm noticing actually here all the channels are covering this as a news item. And yours is, of course, 24/7 you are covering it. First of all, thank you very much on that.
Yes.
But at the same time, according to me, these kind of murders are happening in Bangalore, not only in Bangalore, in other states also.
Yes.
So keeping this kind of a mind, why actually we are not covering any such kind of issues at this kind of a mega level? For example, UP children case. Yesterday, when you are making the debate on this, suddenly you stopped and you moved to this. So what I want to communicate to you actually is that any death that is happening is also an event. It is not take only because of this. She is a journalist, a senior lady. That's one thing. Am I making sense of it? Hope that. So I want to say to you is that basically.
All right, Mr. Srinivas Rao, I'm very glad you've asked this question. This is a very important question to ask, and I'll take the liberty to answer. I'll also ask our panelists to weigh in on this question. We spent on this channel 2 weeks on the deaths of children in Uttar Pradesh, 2 weeks consecutively every night, and we have revisited that story every time there has been a development, as we did last night as well. We have spent a considerable amount of time and energy on every case that has come up about crime against women, about murders, about law and order. In fact, we focus on this channel on law and order and not on politics, because we believe that the Constitution, the courts and the law and order machinery are more important than the politicians. So I'm very glad you wanted to ask that question. Now, when it comes to this particular case, the reason why we have to talk about it, and perhaps everybody else is talking about it, is because it is a question of someone being murdered for opinion. Opinion that we all have the right to have in this country. You can have an opinion, I have an opinion. We might write it on Facebook tomorrow, we might write it on Twitter tomorrow. Does that give anybody the right to shoot you? No, it does not. And that is why this is a shocking case that needs to be talked about. I'm going to ask all 4 of our panelists to weigh in on this. Nalini Singh, as a journalist yourself, do you believe that the media is overplaying this particular case because it happens to be a member of the fraternity?
No, not at all. Not at all. When it was, when we had this Gurmeet in Haryana, and the media OB vans were thrown away, etc. So there was lots of comment on that the media is overplaying Gurmeet. I refuse to call him Baba Ram Rahim, etc. So this Gurmeet con man, this story, they thought we are overplaying only because the media has been harmed. It's not true at all. I think even in this case, it's not true that we have gathered together, because when there is grief in a family, you need to see each other. You need to be able to reach across to each other, because you know who the other journalist is. There are some core strong, stable values that are in journalists, and you therefore reach out to that. So we have had these protests today in different cities because we want to reach out, and also we want to tell the authorities and our the entire society that this won't do. But we are not doing it only because there's a journalist. For Gorakhpur, as you're quite right, you have carried it for 2 weeks. Other times,
that's a fair point. And I want to bring in, Nalini, if you'll forgive me, ND Mullah as well. Mr. Mullah, as a former policeman, do you believe that there is an overplay to this particular case within the media? Do you believe that this is just that there are lots of murders that happen in this manner across different cities?
I agree with Ms. Nalini Singh, and definitely the allegation of overplaying may not be well founded. Well, it required that a woman, more so a right-thinking woman, cannot be eliminated because somebody doesn't like her thoughts or whatever reason. There cannot be a reason to eliminate. Dissent should have a place in democracy.
Yes, same question to Mr. Jayant Umranikar. In your career, you've obviously seen several murders, but this one gaining prominence on national media at this point begs the question of whether or not the journalistic fraternity is giving too much play to one particular case, because this is one of our own. My appeal, along with Nalini Singh, is that this is about just agreement or disagreement. It's not just about a journalist. Mr. Umranikar.
No, I won't say it has been exaggerated. It's a sensational murder. I can recollect Joshi Abhyankar murder also. It was not a political murder at all, but it was very sensational. And after that, it was followed up in TV, although in those days we didn't have so many channels. It is a very sensational case because right in the midst of Bangalore, in a city which is known for its organization, this kind of murder has happened. What has happened is absolutely sad, but let us examine what exactly is the evidence available. There was a journalist had opinions, and there were different kinds of opinions against different kinds of sets of people. And you can't really conclude. That's why I'm saying, you can't infer. Inference does not hold in the court of law. You have to see the evidence. What is the evidence? Some people who were helmeted came to her residence. Because they were wearing helmets, apparently their faces could not be seen. It's very difficult to identify them. Since this was a very premeditated murder, they would have practiced this. They left no clue behind, or at least we do not know if there are any clues left behind on the crime scene. When such things happen, you really have to go for criminal intelligence. And I'm slightly sad to say that nowadays people do not pay much attention to criminal intelligence. Earlier we used to have a network of intelligence officers even on the crime side who would come up and who would let us know as to who are the likely possible assassins. And for that you also need to know what kind of weapons have been used. It's very easy to say that this weapon was similar to the weapon used in crime A, B, C. But saying similar weapon does not really carry any weight, because similar weapons are being used even by the police forces all over the world. Similar weapons are being sold by our own ammunition factories. So that doesn't really bring you down to a specific weapon. What else is there? There are some bullets that have been fired. Now, unless there is a forensic evidence coming forth and saying that these bullets have been fired by a particular weapon, through a particular weapon, you can't really conclude anything about that. Then the next stage is going to be who has sold these weapons. Now, when you want to talk about selling weapons, there are two types of weapons. There are official weapons, there are unofficial weapons. If it's a country-made pistol, extremely difficult to find who has made it. Not that it is impossible, but it will take some time. And what you say is right. Because so many murders have remained unresolved, people have this feeling that police are not doing enough of work. But that is not true, because I have seen how people have struggled. I mean, Maharashtra police have struggled. In case of murders of Dabholkar and Pansare, And believe me, whether it was Congress government or whether it was BJP government, both of them wanted to resolve these murders as quickly as possible because the speculation was hurting both the political parties. So, unfortunately, there are not enough clues available. There were a few arrests made in case of Dabolkar's case, but then the evidence produced against those could not withstand the court scrutiny. So they had to be let go.
Okay.
These
let me bring in. I want to bring in Karuna Nandi here, sir, if I may. Karuna Nandi, my question to you is it time perhaps for a PIL in either the Karnataka High Court or the Supreme Court for some sort of change in the pattern that we're seeing in these murders, where murders are happening and there's no, there seems to be no headway in any of these investigations?
It's only been a day in this investigation, and I don't think it would necessarily be wise for the police to be announcing the results of their investigation or the leads on national television. So it's unclear whether they're having any success or not on this. Although it's disappointing to hear the speaker before me just throw up in his hands and say, well, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. It's all very difficult, right? Because the government exists for one primary reason, and it is to make sure that there's no might is right. People are not murdered left, right, and center with impunity. However, I will say this, is that terrorist acts kill few people, but they have a large chilling effect. The way a terrorist is defined is using violence and other measures to spread their political message. A lot of people are extremely apprehensive due to the circumstances of this case, not because of the evidence, because very limited evidence have come out, but the circumstantial sort of similarities between this murder, the assassination of others who were rationalists and did not ascribe to a particular kind of religious thought. And I think this is what is upsetting people in a much larger way, and this is why it is an issue for your larger fraternity, because it is striking at the heart of our democracy, which is the constitutional right to free speech and the right for the media to question power, to ask any question, whether it's the power of the state, whether it's the power of the mob, whether it's the power of the gun, and to make sure that they are protected. And so the reason this is being referred to as an assassination, and I think it should, depending on the evidence, be referred to as a potential terrorist act, is because terrorism is something that is defined in this manner, in general. It is not just ISIS. It is not just somebody blowing themselves up in a plane. It is somebody who is killing another person through violence to spread their political message. And it's been sort of very difficult, I think, for a lot of journalists, because suddenly you see the potential gunman at your door. And unless this is dealt with, the chilling effect on this, I fear, will, only the most courageous will be continue to speak. And surely in a democracy, that's not the bar. That's not what it should take.
Absolutely. I have a couple of people on the phone line. We're going to patch them in. Rajiv Ramchandani on the phone line from Mumbai. Go ahead, Mr. Ramchandani.
Yeah, hi, Faye. Big fan of yours. And precisely the conversation that's happening. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
So the whole thing is that, evidence gathering and police, the expertise and how well they do their jobs. Nobody's talking about police reforms, because how do we get the quality in our police personnel? We see a lot of these international programs on TV, on cable and stuff about the Americans and how they do it, and other films. But our police is somehow caught in a 20th century or 19th century evidence gathering format,
No, but to be fair, Mr. Ramchandrani, the police officer did say that cases like this go unsolved across the world. Martin Dennis is on the phone line. Martin Dennis, go ahead.
Hello, Faye.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First things first, I would love that you should get your own protection.
I don't need protection. Mr. Dennis, thank you for calling in. We have a couple of people on the phone line, but I'm just going to take closing comments from each of our guests before we wrap up this conversation. Mr. N.D. Mullah, in order for the police to be able to do their job and get to the bottom of this, what support do you think the police needs at this point?
I think now a team is formed, and I hope the Commissioner of Police has formed the team with a particular kind of officers who are good in investigation and this kind of investigation and detection of such cases. And he will have his own expertise from the forensic lab people and then legal advisors and all that. And please give us some time. The Karnataka police, more so Bangalore police, is very efficient, and if necessary, the CID also should be involved. Intelligence people also should be involved in this case, and it should be detected. And I hope it will be detected. It will be detected. It will not see the fate of Kalburgi case. I am sure about that.
How are you sure about that, Mr. Mullah?
Because, we have the experience of Kalburgi case. We have the cases earlier which were detected. Particularly, you see, I will recall this MLA Ashnotikar case, who was also shot dead, and the assailants were from Bihar, but Karnataka police was able to detect it. We have experience of detecting such cases. And I hope, if properly investigated, this case also would be detected.
So the Kalburgi case was not detected because it was a learning curve for the police?
No, a Kalburgi case was not detected because there were no clues at all. It was you just cannot go on witch hunting. Police has to do a specific job of collecting evidence, not only detecting the case, collecting the evidence.
There was no evidence in the Kalburgi case at all.
The job of the police is to take evidence, not enough. Not enough
evidence. So the Kalburgi case will go undetected. What gives you confidence that there is enough evidence in this case?
It has not gone undetected. Still, it is because it has happened in a place where there are plenty of CC cameras, and it has happened in Bangalore city, and we will be able to get some evidence. Give us some time. We can sit on this again after about a week and discuss this. By that time, hopefully, we'll have some evidence on this.
Okay, so if I get this correctly, Mr. N.D. Mullah, retired Deputy Commissioner of Police, Bangalore, says the Kalburgi case had not enough evidence, but investigation is on. He is sure that this case will have evidence because of the CCTV cameras. Remember, the CCTV cameras don't have a clear view so far that we know of the assailants, and they were wearing helmets, so they cannot be identified. I want to take this.
No. CCTV camera is one of the.
Okay. What is the other evidence you believe that?
CCTV cameras is one of the evidence. You see, there are many evidence which is not right now to tell you. Police also will not disclose their sources. This is not the right time to come on there. But give us some time. Give some time to the police. Some time, a week's time. We will come out with some. Hopefully with some evidence.
Mr. Mullah, as a retired Deputy Commissioner of Police, you said the police will not reveal their sources at this point, but you seem to suggest that they have revealed their sources to you. Do you have reason to believe that there is more evidence in this case than there was in the Kalburgi case?
Hopefully, yes. I am very sure there will be more evidence in this case coming through.
Hopefully, you're very sure. Okay, Nalini Singh? I'm a little confused by that.
I'm very sure. Don't get confused yourself. Hopefully, is the generally used term. I'm very sure next week we will sit and discuss the same.
That. Okay. Nalini Singh, please go ahead.
You are talking to me.
I'm still unconvinced by what he has said, because remember the Panama Papers? That was really not even half a needle in mansions of haystack, and yet our journalists were able to discover. So I would say it's not that. I think the unique thing about Indian journalists is that they keep asking the same question 1,000 times if necessary until they get the answer. So I would say that the Indian journalists should be asking this. And actually today we should also laud the police. Mr. Mullah has mentioned Bihar. In Bihar today or yesterday, a person called Rocky Yadav has been convicted, given a life sentence for what? For shooting an innocent person, a young boy who was going in a Maruti car and who overtook the Fortuner or a huge SUV of this MLA's son, and he just shot him point blank. So this was also a case where everybody thought that nothing will happen. Well, today the good news is that he's got a life sentence. His father, who sheltered this gentleman or this man after he shot, got 5 years in prison. So we should feel quite encouraged. But the last thing I'll say, Faye, is that, when we're talking of this environment and atmosphere of intolerance and not living with each other, television anchors have contributed hugely to this. And the debates that we've had, the kind of savage shouting, speaking over each other, just doing each other down. There were a few seconds of that in this debate also, but I compliment you for keeping it so civil. This is what we have to go back to. We have to know that the other person has a full right to be able to give that. We have to acknowledge it, and then we have to analyze it, come up with something better. We cannot take these medieval methods of killing people or of silencing them in whatever manner possible.
Absolutely, that's really well said. That brings me to the end of this conversation. I'm just going to leave our viewers with the last thing Gauri Lankesh said in public on her Twitter account. She said, "Why do I feel that some of us are fighting between ourselves when we know our biggest enemy? Some of us commit mistakes, but we must stay together." I think it's really well said. It's a good point to leave this conversation on. Fighting amongst ourselves is not going to help. It is about, like Nalini Singh said, having an opinion, respecting each other's opinions, and hearing each other out. Thanks for watching.